There's a pain men don't talk about. It's the pain of being hurt by a woman you once opened your soul to. She knew your secrets. She touched your pride. And somehow, she still cut you where it bled the most. So what do you do now? Do you retaliate? Do you chase her to make her see your worth? No. You don't do either. Because real strength is not in vengeance, and real worth doesn't beg. You rise. You rise by letting the pain refine you, not define you. You let her actions be her reflection, not your identity. The man you become after heartbreak is either broken, or reborn. And that's your choice to make. When she disrespects you, don't lower your standards, raise your boundaries. When she plays games, don't try to win, walk away from the board. Because the moment a woman hurts you and sees you still choosing self-respect, that's when you win. You don't need to make her regret losing you. You need to become the man you don't regret losing yourself for. So heal, not to get her back, but to become so powerful, so grounded, that no one can break you the same way again. You're not here to beg for love. You're here to become love, solid, rare, and impossible to forget. When a woman hurts you, whether by betrayal, disrespect, or emotional neglect, the first instinct is to act. You want to speak up, to confront her, to make her feel the same pain she caused you. And for some men, there's even a desire to chase after her, to try and prove their worth, hoping she'll recognize what she lost. But both of these instincts, as natural as they feel in the moment, are traps. They don't come from strength. They come from ego, from pain, and from a wounded sense of self. Retaliation and chasing only further entangle you in a dynamic where she has control over your emotions, your actions, and your identity. But there is another path, a harder path. One that demands discipline, self-respect, and emotional maturity, withdrawal with dignity. To withdraw doesn't mean to run away. It means to reclaim your energy. It means recognizing that the power dynamic has shifted and refusing to participate in something that chips away at your value. When you've been hurt, your dignity becomes your armor. It's the invisible line you draw that says, I respect myself too much to beg, to argue, or to lower myself. That kind of man doesn't need to yell to be heard. He doesn't need to chase to be chosen. He understands that real power lies in silence, in composure, in the ability to walk away when his worth is not seen. Many men confuse strength with confrontation. They believe that to be strong is to fight back, to prove a point, to make her feel guilty. But strength is not measured by how loud you are or how much pain you can return, it's measured by your ability to remain grounded when everything inside you wants to explode. The man who can sit with his pain without using it to inflict pain on others is a rare breed. He's a man who has learned the art of emotional self-control. And in a world where instant reactions are common, that kind of restraint is power. Withdrawing with dignity is not passive. It is an active decision to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. It is an intentional move that says, I will not allow this situation to reduce me. I will not give it the power to drag me into behavior that goes against who I am. Because in the end, no matter how badly someone treats you, your response will always define your character. You can't control what she does. You can't control how she feels or whether she regrets it. But you can control how you carry yourself in the face of disrespect. That's what separates men who rise from men who remain stuck. The moment you retaliate, you give her your energy. The moment you chase, you hand her your power. And the more you try to convince someone of your worth, the more they subconsciously question it. People don't value what begs for attention. They value what walks away when it's not respected. They remember the silence that followed their betrayal, not the drama. They remember the man who didn't break under pressure, who didn't send 100 messages, who didn't cry for closure. They remember the man who went quiet, leveled up, and never looked back. That kind of withdrawal isn't weakness. It's the mark of a man who understands that his time, his attention, and his heart are not cheap. It's a signal to the world, and to himself, that he's not available for games. Not available for manipulation. Not available for disrespect, no matter how much he once cared. That's real self-respect. Not the kind you preach about, but the kind you live. Some women will come back when they realize they can no longer access the same version of you they once hurt. But by then, the man you've become will no longer need that validation. Because dignity changes a man. It builds a quiet confidence in him. It makes him more attractive, not only to others but to himself. He begins to see that peace isn't something he has to find in someone else, it's something he creates by choosing himself, again and again. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need to make her understand. All you need is the strength to walk away when you're no longer being valued. You need the vision to see that your worth was never tied to her treatment of you. And you need the courage to trust that walking away isn't losing, it's choosing. It's choosing yourself over the chaos. Choosing peace over pain. And that's the quiet revolution of the dignified man. Pain changes a man. It cuts deeper than most people ever see, and for many men, it's carried in silence. When a woman you trusted, cared for, or even loved wounds you, whether through betrayal, rejection, or indifference, that pain doesn't just sit on the surface. It goes deep. It shakes your sense of identity. It makes you question your value. It brings every insecurity, every hidden doubt, to the surface. And in that raw, vulnerable place, you face a choice. You can let the pain harden you. Or you can let it shape you. You can become bitter, closed off, and guarded. Or you can let the pain become the very fire that forges you into something stronger than you've ever been before. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It never has. Comfort keeps you soft. Pain, as cruel as it feels, is what reveals who you really are. It forces you to confront the weak parts of yourself, the emotional dependency, the fear of abandonment, the ego that needed validation to feel whole. Pain strips away the illusions. It exposes the cracks in your foundation and dares you to rebuild, not for her, not for revenge, but for yourself. When you use pain as a catalyst, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop chasing the quick fix, the temporary distractions, the illusions of healing that only numb you. You sit in it. You learn from it. You dig into the questions it raises. Why did this hurt me so deeply? What part of me was unprepared for this? What did I ignore, tolerate, or accept that I shouldn't have? That's the inner work most men avoid. They want the gym, the money, the grind, but they don't want to sit alone with their wounds. And yet, that's where real transformation happens. Pain teaches you emotional discipline. It teaches you how to feel without falling apart. It shows you how to stop outsourcing your worth to someone else's approval. It reminds you that you're not just flesh and pride, you're resilience. You're capable of rebuilding even when you've been torn down from the inside out. And what's more powerful than a man who has suffered, and instead of hiding or breaking, decided to rise anyway? The pain you're feeling now isn't meant to destroy you. It's a signal. It's showing you something you needed to see. Maybe it's the way you lost yourself in her. Maybe it's the way you ignored the red flags. Maybe it's the realization that you built your happiness around a person instead of a purpose. Whatever the lesson is, you only grow if you're willing to feel it without trying to escape. You grow when you stop asking why it happened to you, and start asking what it's trying to teach you. You weren't meant to stay the same man forever. And sometimes, the only thing strong enough to shake you out of your patterns is heartbreak. It wakes you up. It breaks your routine. It challenges your assumptions. And if you're wise, you don't resist the pain, you lean into it. Not to wallow, but to understand. Because a man who understands his pain becomes dangerous, in the best way. He becomes focused. He becomes intentional. He becomes someone who no longer accepts less than he deserves, not from others and not from himself. Growth through pain also means accepting responsibility. Not for what she did, but for how you respond, for how you heal, for what you do with the fire. You can either use it to burn yourself alive with anger and regret, or you can use it to ignite a new direction. Build the body you neglected. Create the life you dreamed of. Master the habits that make you unshakable. Speak less, act more. Stop looking back. She was a chapter, not the whole book. Let her go. Let the story evolve. When you stop resisting the pain, it loses its power to control you. You stop reacting and start reflecting. You become less interested in proving a point to her and more interested in proving your potential to yourself. That's growth. That's strength. That's real masculinity, not bravado, not noise, but quiet, steady evolution born from brokenness. One day, that pain will be your fuel. You'll look back and realize it taught you more than comfort ever could. It made you more honest. More focused. More self-aware. It stripped you of your illusions and rebuilt you with truth. That's what pain can do, if you let it. So don't run from it. Don't numb it. And don't let it make you small. Let it make you better. There's a critical difference between boundaries and standards. And when you've been hurt by a woman, both come under attack. The emotional pull to hold on to her, to keep something that's already broken, tempts you to bend your principles. You find yourself tolerating things you once swore you never would. You let things slide. You rationalize the disrespect. You silence your instincts. All because a part of you is afraid that enforcing your limits will drive her further away. But the truth is, what drives people away isn't your strength, it's your weakness pretending to be love. Lowering your standards is the slowest form of self-betrayal. It's not a collapse, it's a quiet erosion. You let a little slide here, a little disrespect there, until you no longer recognize the man staring back at you. You start operating from scarcity. From fear. From the belief that this might be the best you'll ever get. And that lie poisons everything. A man who fears losing a woman more than he fears losing himself is already lost. Because the moment you compromise your standards to keep someone, you teach them how little they have to give in order to stay in your life. But boundaries are the cure to that kind of slow death. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out, they are doors to keep dignity in. They say, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I won't tolerate. They are not selfish. They are not controlling. They are the very foundation of self-respect. And when enforced with calm, not chaos, they are incredibly powerful. Because a man with boundaries is not a man looking to dominate others, he's a man who refuses to be dominated by dysfunction. If a woman crosses your line and you do nothing, that's not love, that's permission. Silence is an answer. Inaction is a decision. Every time you let her behavior slide because you don't want to rock the boat, you send a message that your values are flexible under pressure. And once she sees that, the game changes. Respect erodes. Attraction shifts. And suddenly you're chasing someone who no longer looks at you the same way, because you stopped looking at yourself the same way. The key is not to make her behave differently. The key is to behave differently when your standards are tested. That's what boundaries are about. You don't threaten. You don't yell. You don't try to guilt her into changing. You show her, through your actions, what happens when a line is crossed. You remove your presence. You withdraw your energy. You let your absence speak where your words once begged. And it's in that silence that a woman begins to feel the weight of your worth. Some women will test you just to see what they can get away with. Not because they're evil, but because boundaries reveal what's real. They want to know if your standards are genuine or just talk. And when you fold, you teach her that your love for her is greater than your loyalty to yourself. That's when everything starts to unravel. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you were too afraid to stand firm. Reinforcing boundaries doesn't mean becoming cold or detached. It means having the strength to say, this is who I am. This is what I expect. And if that's too much, I'd rather lose you than lose myself. That takes courage. That takes clarity. And that takes the kind of self-esteem that can only come from doing the work, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because boundaries without belief in your own value are just empty lines in the sand. You weren't put on this earth to beg for love. You weren't made to shrink yourself into someone else's comfort zone. The right woman doesn't need you to lower your standards, she rises to meet them. She respects the man who respects himself. And if she doesn't? That's your sign, not to chase her, but to thank her for showing you she's not your person. Boundaries are a filter. They don't repel love, they protect it. They ensure that whoever gets close to you deserves to be there. They keep your heart from being wasted on people who don't appreciate the depth of it. And most of all, they keep you aligned with the man you're becoming. The man who knows his value, lives by his principles, and never forgets that peace is better than any relationship that costs you your soul. When someone you care about hurts you, especially a woman you opened your heart to, there's a deep ache to be understood. You want her to know how badly she wounded you. You want her to feel remorse, to admit she was wrong, to finally say the words that would bring you some peace. I get it now. That longing can consume you. It plays on repeat in your mind. You imagine the conversation, the confrontation, the moment she finally sees the pain she caused. But the hard truth is, many of those moments never come. And chasing them only leaves you more broken. Letting go of the need to be understood is one of the hardest things a man will ever do. Because it means giving up the hope that you'll ever receive the apology you deserve. It means accepting that some people will go through life completely unaware of the damage they left behind, or worse, fully aware and still indifferent. And that can feel like an open wound. It can feel like injustice. It can feel like failure. But it's none of those things. It's simply life. Life doesn't promise closure. It doesn't promise fairness. It only promises you the opportunity to choose who you become in response to what breaks you. When you cling to the need for understanding, you hand your healing over to someone else. You say, I'll finally be okay when she gets it. But that puts your peace in the hands of the very person who disturbed it. And that's a powerless place to live. True freedom begins when you decide that her understanding is not a requirement for your growth. That her validation is not needed for your worth to be real. That you don't need her to agree with your pain for your pain to be valid. And then there's the desire for revenge. The itch to make her feel what she made you feel. To show her what she lost. To prove through success, or silence, or savage indifference that she messed with the wrong man. That hunger is seductive. It feels like power. But it's not power, it's captivity. It changes your attention to her. It turns your healing into a performance. You start living not for yourself, but for the chance that she's watching. That one day she'll regret, she'll weep, she'll come crawling back. But what if she doesn't? What if she moves on and never looks back? Will your strength evaporate with her indifference? That's the danger of revenge, it ties your strength to someone else's reaction. And a man tied to reaction can never lead his own life. He's always following, always waiting, always orbiting around someone else's awareness. But healing isn't about being seen. It's about becoming. It's about choosing peace even when chaos seems more satisfying. It's about walking away not because you're weak, but because you're done letting her live rent-free in your head. It's about reclaiming your story. There is a different kind of power available to you, the quiet, steady power of letting go. Of choosing to rise without dragging anyone down. Of becoming better, not out of spite, but out of purpose. When you let go of the need to be understood or avenged, you step into a rare kind of freedom. The freedom to stop explaining yourself. The freedom to stop replaying the past. The freedom to stop waiting for something you may never get. Letting go doesn't mean the pain didn't matter. It means it matters enough not to let it define you. It means you're ready to close the chapter, not because it ended the way you wanted, but because you've outgrown it. You've outgrown the fantasy of revenge. You've outgrown the need to be seen. You've outgrown the belief that peace has to come from someone else's recognition. And maybe, just maybe, she'll look back one day and understand. Maybe she won't. But by then, it won't matter. Because you'll be too far ahead, too focused on what's next, too full of life to care about who failed to see your value. You won't need her understanding. You won't crave her regret. you'll have something better, yourself. Fully present. Fully whole. Fully unshaken by the past. There's a certain kind of woman who will test you, not to connect, not to grow, but to control. Her love will feel like a reward you have to earn, and her silence will feel like punishment. One day you're lifted, the next you're discarded. And before you realize it, you're no longer living from a place of self-respect, you're chasing her approval, trying to win back a version of her that was likely never real to begin with. But the truth is, if love becomes a performance, it's no longer love. It's manipulation. And the strongest move a man can make isn't to convince her of his worth, it's to walk away without asking for permission. Manipulation feeds on your need to be accepted. The moment you crave her validation more than your own self-respect, you've given her the keys to control you. She can withhold affection to make you prove yourself. She can twist your words, guilt-trip your actions, and confuse your logic until you're apologizing for things you didn't even do. And if you don't have clear internal boundaries, you'll fall for it. You'll try harder, love deeper, and give more, thinking that if you just become enough, she'll finally love you the right way. But that's the trap. You're not supposed to audition for love. You're supposed to be met where you stand. A woman who respects you doesn't play games to see how far you'll bend. She doesn't make you earn moments of peace or affection by proving your loyalty over and over. But the manipulative woman thrives on instability, because chaos keeps you chasing, keeps you explaining, keeps you stuck in a cycle of trying to decode her behavior rather than seeing it for what it is. Emotional control masked as passion. And once you're trapped in that loop, it's hard to break free. Not because you're weak, but because your heart's involved. And the heart always wants to believe it wasn't a lie. But here's the truth you need to hold on to: you don't owe anyone your soul just because you once loved them. You don't have to stay just because you shared something beautiful in the beginning. People change. Masks fall. And if she's using confusion, guilt, or shame to hold you in place, that's not a relationship, it's a prison. The door is open. And you don't have to stay. Walking away isn't about punishing her. It's not about winning. It's about reclaiming your clarity. The moment you stop playing the game, you win by default. You take back your energy, your focus, your peace. And more importantly, you take back your sense of self, the part of you that was slowly being eroded by every moment you tolerated what you knew was wrong. You don't need her to understand why you left. You don't need her to agree. You don't even need closure. All you need is to remember who you were before you started bending yourself to fit her expectations. Before your self-worth got tangled up in whether or not she was happy. Before you started questioning your instincts every time she turned the tables on you. A man's strength is not measured by how much pain he can endure for a woman, it's measured by how quickly he can recognize manipulation and choose dignity over desire. Because desire fades. Manipulators know how to make you feel needed, even addicted. They know how to sprinkle just enough affection to keep you coming back. But it's not love, it's control. And once you see it clearly, your only job is to leave. Not to explain. Not to teach her how to love you better. Just leave. Don't trade your peace for her attention. Don't sacrifice your truth for her temporary affection. Don't fight for a place in someone's life who treats your emotions like weapons and your loyalty like leverage. Walk away, not toward her apology, not toward her changed behavior, not toward her validation. Walk toward yourself. Toward freedom. Toward the kind of life where love doesn't hurt more than it heals. The approval you seek should never come at the cost of your self-worth. If you have to earn respect by tolerating disrespect, you've already lost more than you realize. You're not here to be someone's emotional puppet. You're here to live fully, love freely, and walk firmly in your truth. And if that truth offends someone who thought they could control you, let them be offended. Because the man who walks away from manipulation is the man who finally understands his power. Not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that refuses to be dominated by emotional games. That's real strength. That's real freedom. And no approval in the world is worth giving that up. There comes a point in every man's life when he has to ask himself, who am I, really? Not the version of himself shaped by the expectations of others, not the man molded by the opinions of those around him, but the true man, the one beneath the layers, beneath the noise, beneath the distractions. The man who stands in his own power, in his own purpose, and is proud of who he has become. This isn't a question of status, wealth, or the approval of others. It's a question of integrity. A question of self-respect. A question of whether or not you can look yourself in the mirror and feel good about the life you're living, the choices you're making, and the man you're becoming. The path to becoming the man you're proud of is not easy. It's not paved with shortcuts or instant gratification. It's a journey that demands discipline, sacrifice, and, most importantly, an unflinching commitment to growth. But the rewards are profound. A man who is proud of himself does not seek validation from anyone outside of himself. He doesn't need constant reassurance or external approval because his worth is not negotiable. His value is inherent, built on the foundation of his actions, his decisions, and his ability to remain true to his own principles, even when the world pushes him in 100 different directions. So many men waste years of their lives chasing the wrong things, chasing the approval of a woman, a group of friends, or even the world itself. They try to fit themselves into molds they weren't meant to fill, wear masks they weren't meant to wear, and live lives that leave them empty and unfulfilled. They look for validation from the very people who will never see their worth. And in the process, they lose sight of what truly matters, becoming a man they can stand behind, a man they can respect, a man they can be proud of, regardless of who is watching. To become this man, you must first let go of the need to please others. You must stop living for the momentary applause, the fleeting compliments, and the praise that comes from fitting into someone else's idea of who you should be. The moment you start living for others' approval is the moment you lose your own authenticity. You lose your true self. And there's no greater tragedy than a man who spends his life trying to be everything to everyone, except the person he was meant to be. Focus instead on becoming a man who lives with purpose. A man who wakes up every day with a sense of direction and a commitment to his own growth. The man who lives his values, who doesn't bend to pressure, who refuses to compromise on his integrity for the sake of convenience or comfort. The man who can stand in the face of adversity and say, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." A man who has made peace with his flaws but continues to strive for excellence. A man who has a vision for his life and pursues it relentlessly, no matter what obstacles stand in his way. Being proud of who you are also means taking full responsibility for your life, your actions, and your choices. You can't blame others for where you are. You can't hold people accountable for your failures. Instead, you own them. You look at your mistakes, learn from them, and grow stronger because of them. The man you are proud of is not perfect, but he is accountable. He recognizes that his life is the result of the decisions he has made, and he makes those decisions with intention, clarity, and purpose. A man who is proud of himself does not shy away from hard work. He understands that nothing of value comes without effort. Whether it's in his career, his relationships, or his personal development, he shows up. He puts in the time, the sweat, the grit. He doesn't take shortcuts. He doesn't expect things to be handed to him. He earns his success with consistency, perseverance, and a relentless pursuit of self-improvement. But becoming the man you're proud of also means having the strength to protect your peace. It means knowing when to walk away, knowing when to let go of toxic relationships, and knowing when to say no to things that no longer serve your growth. The man you want to become is not defined by what he holds on to, but by what he's willing to release. The man who is truly proud of himself has learned that self-respect is non-negotiable. He doesn't sacrifice his peace for anyone's comfort, and he doesn't tolerate anything or anyone who seeks to undermine his sense of self-worth. Pride in yourself comes from the quiet confidence that comes with knowing you are aligned with your values. It comes from knowing you are living authentically, not trying to be someone else's idea of who you should be. It comes from the satisfaction of putting in the work, day in and day out, even when no one is watching. It comes from the courage to stand alone when necessary, to say no when it matters, and to walk away from situations that don't honor who you are. So, the question is not whether or not you can make others proud. The question is whether or not you can make yourself proud. Can you look at the man in the mirror and say, "You've done well. You've stayed true. You've kept fighting"? Can you walk through this life with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're becoming the best version of yourself, no matter what anyone else thinks? That's the kind of man who will never feel empty, no matter what he gains or loses along the way. Because when you're proud of yourself, the world's opinion doesn't matter. You've already won the only battle that matters, the battle for your own respect. In the end, the way you handle a woman who hurts you is not just about her, it's about you. It's about the man you choose to become in response to the hurt. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. You can seek revenge or validation, or you can focus on the one person who deserves your attention the most, yourself. Remember, the true measure of a man is not in how he reacts to the actions of others, but in how he stays grounded in his own integrity, his own strength, and his own sense of worth. When you walk away with dignity, when you let go of the need for revenge or to be understood, when you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, you reclaim your power. You stop being a pawn in someone else's emotional game and start being the master of your own life. So, as you move forward, don't let her actions or anyone else's dictate your peace. Protect your heart, respect your boundaries, and honor your journey. The woman who hurts you does not define you. The choices you make in response to that hurt are what truly shape you. Rise above the pain. Become a man you can be proud of. And most importantly, remember, the best revenge is living your life with purpose, strength, and integrity, no matter the scars you've earned along the way.